So one of the January 6 rioters, a man who carried out one of the most appalling attacks, the most appalling moments of that terrible day, is now going to jail. He beat a police officer with a flagpole while the officer was being dragged down the Capitol steps. The man now will serve more than 4 years in federal prison. His name is Peter Stager. He was sentenced yesterday. He claims he thought the officer was a member of Antifa. That didn't hold up in court. Prosecutors asked he gets 6 years in prison, citing Stager's, quote, chilling motivation and the brutality of the assault that you're watching here, beating a police officer with an American flag. But a judge lowered the sentence a bit, citing Stager's horrible upbringing. More than 1,000 people have been charged so far in connection to the January 6 attack. More than 300 have been sentenced to serve time in prison. And Elise will say it again, and Joe would say it if he was here, that there are consequences to this. Donald Trump thought he could send these people out. He could ask them for money. He could call them heroes. He could create a chorus and a choir of January 6 rioters who are now in jail. But there are an awful lot of them sitting in jail because of what not just Donald Trump, but a lot of people told them was true and the actions they carried out that day because of it.
Well, and that's a pretty easy case, cut and dry, right and wrong, beating a policeman with a pole. You're going to end up with some prison time. That's not exactly a case you look at and say, oh, that's political persecution there. Joyce, I want to ask you, what is it going to take when it comes to what the crimes are against Donald Trump for any of those allegations to actually stick? Conspiratorial charges, charges of directing violence, of inciting violence. It just doesn't play the same way when it comes to the political optics of the courtroom and American public sentiment.
That's right, Elise, and I think we'll see that reflected in the charging decisions that Jack Smith will make. He will not stretch the evidence further than it goes when it's presented to a jury. So I think we'll see a focus on a conspiracy to interfere with the functioning of government, to interfere with the certification of the Electoral College vote, perhaps to interfere with the transfer of power. That's the sort of intimation that we get from what we've learned about this target letter, that it will focus on the conspiracies with the lawyers trying to convince Trump after he's been told you lost the election, after judges, including judges that he put on the bench, have ruled against him in court over and over and over. And the narrative seems to be that he becomes more desperate. He loses in court. He latches on to this utterly inane scheme to create slates of fake electors in 7 different states and to use those fake slates of electors to change the outcome of the vote there, changing the outcome of the vote nationwide. And when that looks like it's designed to fail, he ultimately becomes focused on not interrupting the riot that's going on in the Capitol, sitting there for a couple of hours while violence is ongoing as people tell him that he can stop it, and he refuses to do that. And why Jack Smith might ask a jury, would the former president refuse to stop the violence? Well, you can infer from that that he intended it to continue to its logical outcome. He still wanted to interfere with governmental processes. At the end of the day, it's that sort of dry-sounding crime that prosecutors will take to a jury. But the facts are not dry. We all watch them unfold in front of us.
And that's the thing. There's video of all of it. We will wait together, and we'll call you right back as soon as we get any news on this. Former U.S. Attorney Joyce Vance. Joyce, thanks so much. Jonathan, going back to the man who attacked the police officer on the Capitol steps, got just over 4 years in prison. One of the reasons he got prison time was because of his motive, and we should be specific about what he said. He was captured on video that day saying, quote, every single one of those Capitol law enforcement officers, death is the remedy. That is the only remedy they get. That man talking about police officers defending the Capitol against an attack. There's a pattern here, John, that we're seeing. I mean, you can pick up the newspaper almost any place you live. This man was from Arkansas. You can read about it here in New York or all over the country, where somebody who went to the Capitol based on something they'd heard from Donald Trump, based on something they'd heard on the news that they watch or the websites they read, carried out a crime. And then immediately when they realized, oh, this is a crime and that we're not here on some, holy mission, they're going to jail. And he had that moment, apparently, and if you read the court records, he called his wife and said, I've done something terrible. I'm going to turn myself in when I get back home to Arkansas. But the crime is a crime. Doesn't matter if you feel bad about it. Again, a lot of them, they're responsible for their actions that day, but driven there by the lie you wrote about in your book.
Yeah, death is the remedy. That's a hard thing to hear. Yes, that is absolutely right, Willie. And it was a lie that was months and frankly years in the making, that Donald Trump, from his candidacy in 2016, started planting the seeds of the idea that an election could be rigged if he were to lose, that he could only lose if it was fixed against him. And he took his time in office where he mainstreamed conspiracy theories, big lies, small lies on matters of little significance to some of the most important tenets of our democracy. Nothing was out of bounds for his lies, and he focused in on, of course, this election and conditioned his supporters, encouraged his supporters to not trust their own eyes, to not trust the government, to only trust his conspiracy theories, and then to commit violence in his name, Eugene Robinson. And we